Hey guys, welcome back. I'm into caring for the environment and upcycling and repurposing fabrics wherever I can. So stick with me, we're going to make a reusable shopping bag right after this. We can do it! Welcome Victory Stitches! Today we are going to be making a shopping bag, a reusable shopping bag. As you know, plastic is the scourge of the seas in our landfills at the moment. Supermarkets are going away from the one-use only plastic bag and heading towards reusable bags. They sell them for a few dollars each, but we're going to make one today that's going to cost you next to nothing. Mine is used from some upcycled materials and some other stuff I found in my stash. I've had comments from our local supermarket on the other bags that I've made, which incidentally were made from an old tablecloth, a good strong cotton tablecloth that was looking a bit tired and too small for my table anyway, so I repurposed it and made 3 shopping bags out of it. Lovely and strong, much stronger than those awful plastic things from the supermarket. They've actually commented on how strong they really are, and they can fit loads of groceries in them, so it's benefiting both sides. It's benefiting the environment and it's benefiting the supermarkets, it's benefiting you, me. So let's go for upcycling. So I'll show you the materials we need for this project. It's very simple. We start with, I'm using just a cotton drill type of fabric. This was just in my stash, but you can use anything you've got lying around really that's fairly sturdy. So we need 2 pieces of fabric for the outside of the bag. They measure 20 inches width and 17.5 inches for the height. Now it may seem odd that it's wider than it is tall, but we are going to actually box the corners, so that's going to take something off the width. So we've got 2 pieces that look like this. We're going to cut another 2 pieces identical to this for our lining. Now for my lining I have used a skirt that I got for about $1 or $2 at the thrift store. And the material, while it's quite pretty, is quite staticky and synthetic, so I can't see myself making a garment from this because it's just going to have all that static cling, but it's perfect for lining a shopping bag. And that is our lining. So the last piece we need, or 2 pieces we need, identical pieces again, are for the handles, and I've used the black fabric that I had before. I've cut 2 pieces, each measuring 19 inches by 4 inches wide, and those are going to be the 2 handles, and they're nice and sturdy. We won't need to line them or strengthen them with anything. Right, we're going to use just a simple 1 centimetre seam allowance, which is 3/8 of an inch, and I'm just going to start off. I've got a 2.5 millimetre stitch length, which is a standard one. Start and do a little back stitch just to hold that in place. Now the benefits of upcycling, not only are you stopping that plastic getting into the oceans, but by actually not buying a bag and making one yourself, not only are you saving money, you are getting the chance to repurpose old fabric which you can pick up at your thrift store or using old clothing. Remember, these bags are not designer bags, they don't have to look absolutely stunning. You're keeping that stuff out of the landfill. Not only are you keeping plastic out of the landfill, but you're keeping old material and old fabric and old bits and pieces from getting chucked out and going into the landfill, and they're getting a new lease on life. So now as we get down to just about the end, we're going to turn the corner. And what we're doing is we're sewing down one side along the bottom, and then we'll sew up the other side. So we're just going to switch into Spitfire mode just to get this seam done. This is what you end up with. So you've got 3 sides stitched, that's down this side, along the bottom and up this side, and we are open at the top. And I've repeated the process with my lining fabric. Right sides together, of course, don't forget, so that you have, when you turn it inside out, turn it the right way round, you will see the best side of the fabric. So again, we've stitched down this side, stitched along the bottom, and stitched back up this side, and we've left it open at the top. Now, Usually I would do pretty fabric on the outside because it's a bag and you want people to see it and all the rest of it, and you're thinking, why are you putting that really pretty fabric on the inside of the bag where it's not really going to be seen? The reason in this case is because this fabric is quite thin and not overly strong. It's strong enough for lining, but the construction, main part of the bag, I've got this nice heavy fabric, not as pretty to look at, but it's going to take a lot more knocks and abuse than the inside. Now we are going to do our boxed corners down at the bottom. So the best way to do this is actually to open up the seam. We'll put your arm in the bag with the seam along here. We're going to actually match this seam here with this one. So we're going to line the two together, sort of fold it. It's a bit of origami, and we want to fold it so we can make like a little triangle here. So you can just feel where those two actually line up. You can feel where they meet. And we're going to measure, very technical, we're going to measure in from the peak of the triangle, we're going to measure in about 3 inches. Let's go a tape measure. And a marking piece of chalk. I've got some white here which will show up beautifully on the black. Whoops. And we're just going to put a little mark, so making sure those are lined up. Going about 3 inches. You can vary this as much as you like, depending on how deep you want the bottom of that bag. So it's going to basically be a block bottom bag. So I'm putting a chalk mark at the 3-inch mark. So that's 3 inches from the point of the corner in along that seam. And I'm actually going to pin that in place to hold it, because what I actually want to do is I want to smooth it all out and extend that line to each side. So I'm just going to use my tape measure to make that straight. Going to do a bit of a dotted line. That's going to be my stitching line. Now at the moment the bag is still inside out, so we're still looking at the wrong side of the fabric. We're going to turn it around and do the same on the other side, and I'll meet you back here when we're done. So we've drawn that line, we've made the bag into a bit of a triangle here. Just make sure it's nice and flat. So again, just to recap, I've measured 3 inches from the tip, which is the corner that we pivoted around, 3 inches down into the seam, and then mark where that is, and then extend that 3-inch line all the way to either side. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stitch along that white line, and this is going to enable us to have boxed corners on our bag. Take the pin out, and I've measured the other side and pinned, drawn lines, and I'm just going to do the same on that one. I'm just going to stitch along that white line that I made. Right, now if you were to turn the bag right side out, you'll be able to see what you've actually done. You now have a nice square corner at the bottom of the bag, and we will be stitching up the sides just to make that a little bit more defined. But before we do anything else, we are left with this excess flap, which we don't want. So I'm just going to cut that off with a pair of scissors. Maybe leaving a centimetre or so. That just gets rid of extra bulk that we don't need. So we'll just do that on the other side also. And repeat for the lining piece as well. Essentially, by making a lined bag, what you're doing is making two bags, and then you will insert one to the other. So I'll meet you back when I have done the lining. Okay, I've just done to the lining what I did to the main part of the bag. So we've got that nice square side on each side, square finish. Now, something we're going to do with the main bag, we're not going to bother with the lining, it's not an issue, but I'll just turn my bag around the right way. To help give the bag definition, what we want to do is we want to turn it the right way round. This is the side seam, and we're going to take from the corner of our boxed edge up to the top in a nice straight line, so it's going to be parallel with that side seam. You can eyeball it if you like, or you can take a measurement there and make sure it equals that measurement there, but I'm actually going to eyeball it. I'm just going to pin it into place. We're going to do a little top stitch just along maybe 1/8 of an inch, just inside that fold. It's just going to help the bag, I won't say stand up better, because we're not reinforcing the bag to actually make it stand up unaided, but it just helps give the bag a little bit more shape. So I'll just put a few pins in. And we're going to do that on each side of that side seam. So that's 2 on this side and 2 on the opposite side. So I'm just going to pin this one also. Looks pretty even. Pins are a good idea just to keep it in place. It doesn't go rogue on you. I'll take this back to the machine and I'll show you what we'll end up with. So just placing it under our foot, zipper foot, and we're just going to, I'm not sure how closely you can see this, but we're just going to go just to the left of that fold. We're just going to catch it. Get down to the bottom where we meet that box seam that we just made. I'll go down to there, just down to where that seam is, and do a little back stitch. And there we have it. So what we have, if we open that back up, it's like a little ridge. And you can see that just gives the bag a little bit of definition, a little bit of shape. So I'm going to repeat that with the other side of this one, and then flip it over and repeat on the opposite side of the bag. So I'll meet you back here when I'm done. Ta-da! Nice edges on both sides of the bag, and we're ready to move on to the handles. Now you can actually do this edging with the lining if you want, there's nothing to stop you. I just personally can't be bothered because I don't see the point. You know, the lining's going to go in there and it's going to kind of mould itself to the inside of the bag, so I just don't bother. Right, onto the handles. 2 handles, 4 inches width and 19 inches in length. just to work on them one at a time. Now this material is nice and strong, and we're going to do it quadruple thickness actually, so that is going to give it a very sturdy strength, and it's going to enable the bag to withstand a bit of weight of those groceries, especially all those bottles of wine. So I'm going to fold it in half lengthways, and I'm going to just gently press so I can see where the centre is. I'm just going to give it a press to make that line in the centre. Remember to make sure your iron is set for the right temperature for the type of fabric you've got. Mine's set at cotton. Now when we open that up, you can probably see that line in the middle. Now I'm going to take each outside edge and bring it into that line in the centre, just shy of the fold, because we're going to have a bit of bulk, so we need a bit of wiggle room. So just maybe a millimetre or two away from that fold line, and we're going to iron or press that into place, like so. And flip it and repeat it for the other side. Again, just a bit shy of that fold line, so you end up with a little bit of a gap. You can see that quite easily. A little wee bit of a gap down the centre. Then we're going to fold along that original line that we pressed. And by leaving that gap, it gives us a bit of room to move, because remember, we're turning something two-dimensional into something three-dimensional. Now what I am going to do is I am going to pin this in place. So this is our open edge. I'm just going to place a few pins in here. I want to make sure that they are lined up. We don't want them sort of offset like this, because when we come to stitch it, it's not going to catch the other side. So we do need to make sure that they are meeting in the centre. So place a few pins in before we do our stitching. Right, pinned and ready to go. I have done the other one exactly the same, pressed and pinned into place. That's the great thing about this bag, especially if you're a beginner sewist. There's a lot of repetition, because you're making two handles, you're making two bags, the outer and the liner, and everything is made the same way, so you get to actually reinforce those skills. And if you're anything like me, you're the kind of person who learns by doing and by seeing. This is why I love YouTube, because I can't follow 2D instructions very well with pictures. I have to watch people doing things. So I've learnt a lot of various techniques on watching YouTube. And I learn by doing. So by actually doing everything twice, you're getting double the learning. So we're just going to stitch down that area that we folded in half. So we're actually stitching through 4 layers now, but don't worry, your machine will cope. And again, just like when we did that top stitching on the main part of the bag, we're going to go about 1/8 of an inch in, just to catch those 4 layers together. Doesn't matter about the raw edges, because they're going to be caught up on the inside of the bag and they're never going to be seen again. So we're just going to put a little back stitch to get that anchored, and just take your time as you go down, making sure that all 4 layers are caught in. Right, I'm just going to switch into Spitfire mode to take you down to the end, and I'll meet you right back. We've got one side stitched, and just to keep it looking uniform, we're going to stitch the other side, the folded side, just so everything just sits nicely. Same again, just catching about 1/8 of an inch in to match the other side. And then we're going to take that handle just over to the ironing board. I'm going to give it a quick press to make sure it's nice and flat, and then I'm going to repeat with the other side, the other handle. Right, time to attach the handles to the bag. The first thing is, having one side facing up, take those two edges that you top stitched, put them together. We're just going to find the midpoint. So I'll just press in there, that little fold. I'm going to mark a little white line with my chalk. That is the midpoint. So that is the centre where we're going to place the handles around. I'm going to measure 2.5 inches either side of that mark and make another mark. Two and a half here and 2.5 here. Now the handle, normally on a handle on the bag would be going like this. But we're actually going to do it, seems a little counterintuitive, we're going to put them hanging down because we actually have to stitch the lining on the bag as well. And then when everything gets pulled around the right way, you'll see how it works. The main thing you need to be careful of is that you don't twist your handle when you put the handle on onto the bag. So I'm putting the edge of the handle up against that line, so that actually there's still a 2.5 inch gap there. I'm not putting it inside here because I think that's going to make too narrow a handle. So to the outside of the line, and I'm going to place a pin to secure that, keeping it flat without twisting it, coming out the other side and doing the same on the other side. Again, edge up against the line, so we still have 5 inches of space in the centre of that side of the bag, and pin that into place. Flip it over, do it again, take your two edges, meet in the middle, find your halfway point, there it is there, mark it with a bit of chalk, grab your tape measure, measure 2.5 inches, one side, 2.5 inches the other. Take your handle, nice and straight, match up against that line, pin it in place, make sure it stays nice and flat and you don't twist it, and match it up to the other white line. Check that you've still got 5 inches in between. And look at that, I have. Wonderful. So now we're just going to anchor those handles to the top of the bag, fairly close to the edge. I'm just going to use a zigzag stitch just because of the extra strength. And I'm going to, so I've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 little zigzag stitches to do just to anchor those on. So we'll take this back to the machine. I'm just sliding the bag onto the sewing table here, and I'm going to use the edge of my presser foot as my guide, line up with the edge of the top of the bag where it meets the handle. I've got a 2.5mm width zigzag, and I've reduced my stitch length to 1.5. I'm just going to remove that pin. I'm just going to anchor that down. It doesn't have to be pretty. If your zigzag doesn't look quite right, it doesn't matter, because this is all going to be hidden inside the seam allowance once we get that lining in the bag. So I'm just going to reverse and go back down one more time, and that should hold it in place really well. And I'm going to repeat that on the other 3 pinned areas that I've got. I've just finished attaching those handles at those 4 points. I'm going to just lay the bag down for a minute. Now the bag is right side out, as if we were looking at the finished product. I'm taking my lining, which is currently the right side out, where it looks all very nice, and I'm actually going to turn it back inside out. And I'm going to put the outside of the bag inside the lining. This all sounds very, very counterintuitive and really weird. But what we want to make sure is that we have got right sides together. This is the right side, the good side of the bag. This is the right side or the good side of the lining. So we want to make sure those are meeting together. So we're just going to pop our bag inside the lining. We're going to match our side seams together. Now I haven't bothered pressing those seams open, I've just actually kept them flat. So I'm going to have one pointing one way and one pointing the other way, and that they kind of nest in together there. I'm just going to place a pin to hold that in place, and then I'm going to scoot around to the other side seam and do the same thing, making sure it's the side seam you're matching and not your top stitching. If you've got top stitching on your lining, you can match that up as well if you like. So here we go. You can see the fabric is fraying quite a bit. Now if you wanted to, if you had an overlocker or a serger, you could finish the top of that off, but it's not really necessary because we are going to be stitching that together and then flipping the bag around again, and all those raw edges are going to be hidden from view forever. So what we're going to be doing, absolutely make sure that these handles are down. We don't want to get them caught up in anything. We're going to pin all the way along one side, the top of the lining lining up with the top of the bag, and when we stitch that down we will be mostly going through just the 2 layers of fabric, but when we get to those handles we'll obviously have a thicker bit, so you just got to take some care when you go over those thicker bits. Slow down and just give your machine a little bit of help. So that's one side done. I'm going to just flip it around and we're going to do the other side. But what we have to do here, apart from tucking that in and getting that out of the way, we are going to have to leave an area of the bag open. Otherwise we're not going to be able to turn it around the right way. So we need to leave a gap. So I'm only going to pin up to about where the handle is. About there. So when I stitch, I'm going to start from here, which is where the handle starts. I'm going to go around, keep going around, all the way around the other side, and then up to the side seam and stop. So I'll have a gaping hole when I've finished, which is what I want. Right, back to the sewing machine. Right, now I'm going to attach the two together, as I've just discussed. I'm going to start at the side of one of those handles. I can feel it under my fingers. I'm using a 5/8 of an inch or 1.5 centimetre seam allowance here, just to make sure that I've got everything caught in. And I'm going to start, and I'm going to reinforce. It's really important to reinforce with a back stitch, because this is going to be the beginning and I am leaving a gap, and I'll reinforce at the end as well, just so that when I turn it over I don't tear any stitches. So let's go into Spitfire mode while we go around, and then I'll meet you back at the beginning. Okay, we've now gone round from one side almost to the other, and we've left a gap of about 5 inches or so. So we're just going to take that off the machine, trim our raw threads, or our threads off, so they're not being too much of a nuisance. This is a technique, I think it's called in dressmaking, when you're making, say, a lined jacket or a lined coat, it's called bagging out, and to my understanding it's pretty much the same thing. We're doing a very, very simplified version of this, but we're going to bag out our bag. So we're going to bring the right side in, and we're going to get rid of the wrong side and hide that away. So it's just a matter of pulling it through. Ta-da! We now have the good side of our bag showing. The handles have not been caught up, they've been stitched in correctly and are ready to go, and the good side of our lining is on display as well. Now we've still got that gap to contend with. So what we need to do, you can either use the iron for this or you can just finger press, and it's really such a small gap you don't have to worry too much about it. I am just I mean, it seems just naturally want to just fold into place there anyway. So remember we had a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance, 5/8 of an inch for our American friends out there. Just hold that in. And I'm just going to pin it in place because it's a good habit to get into. And I'm just going to stitch that down. You can hand stitch it if you want, but honestly I don't think it's that crucial. What I actually like to do, and it makes it this bit not so obvious, is actually I go around the whole bag and do a top stitch so we don't end up with things sliding around. So you can pin a little bit further. When you get to your handles, give them a tug so they come out, and just make sure that that lining is not sticking up past the bag because it's going to show on the outside of the bag. You just want it, if anything, slightly lower than the bag or flush with the bag. So I'll finish pinning this and then I'll meet you back at the machine. Right, all pinned and ready to go. Again, I'm just going to go about 1/8 of an inch in from that edge. And pinning it now, it's actually hard to find where that original gap was, the gap that we pulled our bag through. And looking closely, I can see it's here because it's gaping there. But once we have finished and we've stitched everything down, it's just going to blend in with everything else. So pop that on the machine. Doesn't matter really where you start. 1/8 of an inch in. Oops. Don't forget to back stitch just to make sure it holds it in place. And away we go. We'll speed up into Spitfire mode and slow down when we get to the end. Right, our bag is done. So I'm going to stand up against a nice light wall so you can actually appreciate, because I've got a black table and a black bag. It's probably not the best combo, but hey, black fabric's what I had in my stash. And like I said in another video, I'm an accountant, so I look at saving money wherever I can. So I'll just take a look at this. So we've got our nice little boxed corners. We've got our nice handles, nice and strong. The bag doesn't stand up on its own, and it's not designed to do that. You can make them by using stabilizers and other sorts of things, but we're just going for a quick, easy, cheap, environmentally friendly project right now. So there we go. One shopping bag, fully lined. Hey guys, Jules' fun fact number 56. Scientists have proven that it is good for the environment to click the like button. So if you want to care about the environment, click the like button on this video, give us the thumbs up, and if you really want to help clean up our world, click the subscribe button, and don't forget the little bell icon down there as well. That will give you notifications in your inbox next time I upload a video. So until then, keep sewing. See you later.